Hi, I'm Warren Sprouse. You're on the Bible Forum. We're here every Sunday night from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time, and we look at life through a biblical lens. We solve all the world's problems in 2 hours or less. Just in the last week or so, Jeff Jansen, you probably don't know Jeff. Uh, Jeff was writing or looking in the future at a movement and a meeting that was coming up entitled Azusa Now. History was made in Los Angeles on Saturday a week ago when Lou Engle, Mike Bickle, Cindy Jacobs, Jack Hayford, and other so-called generals of the faith gathered at the Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum for something they called Azusa Now. Jeff Jansen is founder of something called Global Fire Ministries. He told Charisma News that he believes that this meeting was one of the most significant events in the past few decades. He said, quote, amidst the worship and intercession, I believe something highly significant has shifted in the Spirit, and that we have stepped into a new timeline of revival in the Lord that will result in revival fires burning in not only America, but the nations of the earth. He went on to say, as we were driving on Interstate 5 to the Azusa Now event on April 9, I saw a large gold angel standing over Los Angeles. The Lord said, just as the 1849 gold rush drew people to California, so the April 9th, 2016 meeting will mark a new gold rush of divine proportion that will once again draw the nations into revival. So there you go. It's that simple. He saw an angel. I'm surprised that he didn't see more. The angel spoke. He heard the voices. We're going to talk later in the show about what happens when you hear God's voice. But this is an angel. And that's what these people do. And I don't know if they're on drugs, whether it's emotional, or whether they're just lying. I'm 72 years old. I've never seen an angel, never heard an angel, never heard God speak to me. How about you? These people see visions of things all the time. The Azusa Street revival took place in the early 1900s in Los Angeles, and this was where we got our charismatic movement of today. These folks are now joining with all kinds of other people, and there are other reasonable, rational Christian human beings who, under other circumstances, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole, are now being drawn into it. We talked in the past a little bit about Greg Laurie. He has these big meetings out in California. He has them all over the world now, evangelistic meetings. We've talked about Lou Engle. You know Lou Engle, IHOP, Kansas City Prophets. Well, they're now talking about putting denominations together. Lou Engle is founder of something called Azusa Now, The Call. He's also part of this new apostolic reformation. That's something that Ted Cruz's father is big into. I think he's an apostle in that movement. Sarah Palin had an apostle lay hands on her and tell her that God was in her life and upon her life, and that's when she started out with running for mayor and then governor of the state and running with McCain for the vice presidency, and now she's pushing Trump. Rick Perry had the same experience. These people are trying to get as many people into politics as possible. But now we've got Lou Engle kissing the feet of a Roman Catholic leader live on stage in front of 100,000 people at the LA Coliseum just a weekend or so ago. And the bishop or whoever he was returned it. I think he was a cardinal. I don't know what he was. But there's video. The video shows two of them throwing themselves to the floor in prostrate humility, each proclaiming that Christians and Catholics must unite in the name of unity. And they say that because they cannot unite on any other level. They're uniting in the name of unity. They can't unite in the name of Christianity because they both hold something different. They both have totally opposing doctrines when it comes to the Christian faith. They're telling audiences that the division between Christians and Catholics is a diabolical sin, and that Jesus really doesn't care, direct quote, doesn't care that Christians and Catholics disagree on Bible doctrine. Listen to me. Bible doctrine's all we got. Bible doctrine is who we are. Otherwise, we just create anything we want. You can call yourself anything and be that and have a whole thing go to heaven. You can create. No, we have to have Bible doctrine. They wanted to wash each other's feet, apparently, according to this article, but they couldn't get a water and basin, so they just kissed each other to death. It is an amazing world that we live in. These people are seeing angels. They're hearing God's voice. They know things, and they don't know why they know them. They have set their Bible aside, except when it talks about nice things, but certainly nothing to do with doctrine. A fellow by the name of Dick Eastman never intended to travel the globe 100 times with the gospel of Jesus Christ. He actually wanted to practice law. But when Dick was 20 years of age, he says, God gave him an almost unbelievable prophetic promise in his prayer closet, a promise about millions of souls coming into the kingdom through his ministry. And he's been legislating in the courts of heaven for the lost ever since. He says when God spoke to him in 1964, he said, I thought it was my imagination at first. The first person I thought of was Billy Graham. I asked the Lord if I was going to have a ministry like Billy Graham's. And the Lord told him that he would, 1 million souls would be prayed into the kingdom. So Dick set out, not quickly, not soon, not immediately as it were, but he set out in ministry, and over time he would become what these people refer to as a nation-shaking prophetic preacher. But initially he set that prophecy, that promise on the shelf because he said it seemed preposterous. Seems that way to me too. After college, he worked with Christian youth in Wisconsin before he went off to California to minister in the Jesus movement. You do understand that nothing very good came out of that Jesus movement. And as much as people talk about the kids that got saved, the backstory, the afterglow, indicates that it was just a mess. Anyway, he says, during the outpouring that brought in an overwhelming harvest, not a spiritual harvest, a spiritistic harvest, in the hippie counterculture, Dick, who's now 72 years old, says God told him in 1971 to start planning what he calls prayer corps. Like a Marine Corps? Prayer corps. These prayer corps were predecessors to the 24/7 International House of Prayer in Kansas City, Missouri. So there you are. God spoke to him. He heard the voice. He acted on the voice. He started the prayer corps, and this thing has just exploded. And you do know, we've talked about it before, that in Kansas City, they have people who are in the prayer closet in this room 24 hours a day, and they're just praying. No, they're not. When you read about the things they're doing, it is bizarre. And it's kind of can you top this kind of mentality? It isn't just sit down and let's just pray about this. No, we have to have this kind of prayer and that kind of prayer. We've got to do this, and we've got to scream and holler and jump up and down, and we've got to have this craziness, and we've got to have people that are frozen solid to the floor. I mean, we got to have all kinds of nonsense with this. But my goodness, all sorts of wonderful things are happening because of it. Do you know what's happening? The people are getting excited. The people who are involved get excited. They're very animated. And it attracts people who want what they have. But there's nothing of the gospel in any of this. It's where we are at the end of the 20th and beginning of the 21st century, where everything is fluff and nonsense. And if it's new and it's exciting, it thrills me, must be from God. That's not what the apostles did. It's not what the early Christians did. It's not what any Christians did until the last 40 or 50 years. Certainly not in this country. And the Christians in the 19th and early 20th century turned this world upside down. Africa was called the Dark Continent. Not because there were black people, not because the sun didn't shine, but because the Spirit of God was not there. It was dark spiritually. Missionaries turned the light on. In China, Japan, Asia, Indonesia, all over this world, South America. And in the last 50 years, the light has been turned off. A lot of action, but no real spiritual progress. That's what these people bring. It's not what the Bible brings.